What if BALCEPHALON was in Gen 1 OU? Now, this is one of the Pokemon I considered doing for Halloween before I decided to go with Darkrai. And someone else recommended this when I did my Volcarona video. It, made them take interest and, potentially seeing more fire types in Gen 1 OU. And fire is one of my favorite types. So obviously, I'm more than happy to go over it. And Persephone is an interesting case because it's, part Ghost as well. And as we all know, Ghost is a really overpowered type in Gen 1, at least defensively. So, how cool would Persephone be? Because 107, really good speed. You're slower than Gengar and Tauros, unfortunately. But you're still outspeeding pretty much, like everything in the game. Minus, the two I just mentioned, and Starmie and Alakazam. Not to mention very good crit rate. It's actually only 1 point slower than Terrakion, which I covered yesterday, which is a funny coincidence. Now, 151 base special is insane. Luckily for Showdown, it still uses its base 79 special defense. But if it had 151 special, there would probably be no stopping it. Because that would just be so monumentally powerful that it can pretty much just wall any special Pokemon in the game and then just hit back for very good damage. And while that defense is very crippling, especially since you have a Earthquake weakness, I think if it had a high special, it would still be broken either way. And without it, it's just a weakness that it has to deal with. Not crippling or anything. I still think Persephone would be good in OU, but it's now just a second ghost type that, is weak to ground. 3 if you want to count Haunter as well. But even then, unlike Gengar, it has a really good attack stat at 127. And unfortunately though, where it kind of lacks its physical moves, because it has Explosion. No doubt you're using Explosion on a base 127 attack Pokemon. It's just insane. But then after that, what else do you have for physical moves? Nothing really. Shadow Ball isn't until Gen 2. And even if you had Shadow Ball, can't hit Psychic types or normal types, so there would be no point of it. So you only really have Hyper Beam. So in other words, this guy would have the exact same physical coverage as Regieleki. But the difference between Persephone and Regieleki is that even though Persephone has higher attack, it suffers a lot more. Because Regieleki, it already has a short move pool, but due to just how strong it is, especially with that base 200 speed, and I believe a 31% crit rate, even though you wish you had more consistent, normal moves, like Hyper Beam and Explosion, and even then, I'm pretty sure it also had Body Slam, but considering you have such a high chance to crit, it means that there's way less of a risk to actually use, Hyper Beam, especially on something like Chansey, because the chances are, sorry for that pun, but the chances are that, very good chance that you will crit, to where Chansey can't really risk it. Meanwhile, it's not, the crit rate isn't as high for Persephone, still really high, but you really don't want to rely on it. You wish you had just any other normal move. Even Double Edge would probably, be good enough, especially since you have low HP anyways. Or maybe that's the reason why you wouldn't want to use it. Another move it really wishes it has, and I'm surprised it doesn't have, is Fire Spin. You would think Fire Spin would be perfect for, a performing clown doing tricks, but no, doesn't have it. So that means instead you have Fire Blast. And before you try and ask about Mind Blown, one, Persephone's already good enough to where it doesn't really need it. And two, and this is the really important one, in Gen 1 custom games, it doesn't take recoil from Mind Blown. Yeah, I know. So, imagine this Persephone big enough spam, Mind Blowns without taking any recoil. Yeah, that sounds a little bit too good. I don't know, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments, if you think that's strong or not. So we're not even going to consider it. Even if we wanted to consider it, it would just make them, overpowered. So instead we have like maybe 2 other moves. You have what's it called? Light screen. But I would say you don't really need it, especially with such how low your HP is. So that means your only other moves is either Psychic or Nightshade. Both are good for their own reasons. Nightshade's probably more consistent, but personally I like Psychic just for the chance of maybe getting a special drop, especially against something like Chansey. Could also be good against Gengar, but I honestly don't know what's stronger between Psychic or Stab Fire Blast against Gengar. It probably doesn't change the matchup either way, like you'll be fine. Ish. But like the moveset is a little disappointing. I think if it had Fire Spin, there would absolutely be no doubt that it would be like, like OU. And it will be either way, I would say, because it's a ghost type that isn't as fast but hits harder and has a pretty like decent chance of burning, Tauros, exploding. And it's not even like there's like big competition. I think for a lot of ghost types like this and like Gengar, there's really no reason not to use both of them on the same team. Because now you have 2 normal, immunities. Both can hit really hard with Explosion, but both can just do different things. Gengar can, set up Sweep. Meanwhile, BALCEPHALON, you're gonna switch it in order to get a lot of damage in. Or it could be a pretty good anti-lead, since it does pretty easily, Oko Jinx with Fire Blast. Not to mention, while Gengar can tank, both Psychic and Fire Blast, even League Gengar can still potentially, take a lot of damage. So it might not be worth it, or maybe it is. If not for a, anti-lead, there's no doubt about it that BALCEPHALON would definitely be a revenge killer. And a really dangerous one too, because of just how hard it hits on both the physical and special side. So, overall, like, it wishes it had more tools for it to use, but the tools that it does have are incredibly good. And there's, like, I probably am just being a little, like, too, stubborn. But, oh well. We'll just go into the replay, shall we? Always starting off with the boy himself, Tauros. And Earthquake does a lot of damage, but Fire Blast also does a lot of damage. However, because of how much damage you already take from the first EQ, even if you do get a burn, Tauros can just, just easily kill you the next turn. So, in some ways, it wishes to have paralysis support, but at the same time, even if Tauros is paralyzed, it still takes a lot of damage, and you can still get killed by a crit. So, I'm still putting it could go either way, as the Tauros is basically dead, no matter what. But, yeah. And Snorlax is basically the same thing, but debatably worse, since it's a lot tankier. But at the same time, also better, because BALCEPHALON's actually faster. And depending on the set, like, let's say it's like, like, only normal move Snorlax, you just win. Or let's say it's, like Amnesia Lax. Even Amnesia Lax, you still have strong physical moves. So, like, a critical Hyper Beam can do a lot of damage, and Explosion would do a whole bunch of damage no matter what. Even if it's Reflect Wax. And as for Chansey, like, you don't feel really comfortable, and Psychic does basically nothing to it. So even if you get a special drop, Chansey can take a lot of those. So that's why you're just praying for a critical Hyper Beam. And even then, like, like, you're still not guaranteed. Not to mention BALCEPHALON hates being, paralyzed. I might even argue that, like, BALCEPHALON hates being paralyzed more than Gengar. But on the bright side, Explosion is just a guaranteed Oko, which is more than I can say for Gengar's Explosion. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, if you really want to get rid of the Chansey, BALCEPHALON is a good Pokemon to doing that for. And also, to my surprise, Fire Blast on a critical hit is an Oko on Alakazam. I wouldn't have expected that because of how high Alakazam's special is. But this does make BALCEPHALON way more dangerous. Or even just a critical hit, even against like a big special wall, can still just be a massive threat. And that makes, Explosion in turn just even better. Or even a critical Fire Blast or Psychic on Gengar can just be devastating. Outside of a crit, though, BALCEPHALON, it does, like, good damage. It doesn't, like, OHKO Alakazam. So Alakazam can, paralyze, outspeed, recover, or a critical second can kill. So it could go either way. Like, I think Alakazam probably doesn't risk a crit, whether it be from a Fire Blast or Hyper Beam. And the fact that it doesn't need to use Hyper Beam in order to kill with a crit really helps BALCEPHALON a lot. So it's a risky situation either way. But I don't really know who has more to gain. As for Cloyster versus BALCEPHALON, honestly, you probably don't even bother going for Surf. I'm pretty sure Clamp will most likely kill. But then again, it's still very risky because of just how, fast BALCEPHALON is, and because of how high its special is. And again, a crit could kill. And if Cloyster's at, like, just 29% from a Fire Blast, I'm pretty sure even Trolls can just, like, easily take over at that point, or any other Pokemon. So I guess that's another good thing about BALCEPHALON. Even if it takes a lot of damage, or just gets OHKO'd, it can still probably do enough damage to where whatever it's facing can just be easily killed itself. So it's both a good revenge killer and good for, setting up other revenge killers. Also, Executor just gets murdered by Fire Blast. You're not surprised. And Gengar, like I said, it's faster. Barely, but it still counts. And BALCEPHALON, it can't really do much, unfortunately. Even if Gengar gets unlucky with a Hypnosis, like, there's not much else, like, really. Like, even like a Psychic only does like a third. Or, yeah, that's technically a third. Maybe it's in a damage range, but even if it is, it doesn't really help you too much. And this Gengar was also just being really generous as well. So it's probably just a bad matchup overall. But you gotta hate to see it. And then, like I said before, Jinx is just an OHKO. Which, I wish I could say more about it, but it's just Jinx. It's very frail. I didn't bother getting replays for both Starmie and Swelbro, because I don't think you really need to see, either one of those, like, just murdering BALCEPHALON with Surf. But I decided to go ahead and just go for a Rhydon. And I do feel like, even though it's resistant, Fire Blast did decent damage. And while I never got a replay where Rhydon got burnt, I have a feeling that it doesn't really matter. BALCEPHALON might just die either way, because that's just how, like, frail it is on the physical side. But I'm not sure. But last but not least, we got Zapdos. And Fire Blast is a 3-hit KO. And, if it gets a burn, that's also nice. And I'm pretty sure Paralysis is... I'm not sure if Zapdos going for Thunder Wave is worth it or not. Because it'll just take so much damage. But if it doesn't take it, then it's slower than BALCEPHALON. So I think it could go either way. But I would argue probably more so in BALCEPHALON's favor. But I'm not sure. Either way though, here's the tier list. Maybe you can disagree with some of these. I wasn't really sure what to put Jolteon. To be honest, I'm never really sure what to put Jolteon. But since I know Jolteon's been falling off a little bit more, I decided, especially for a lot of the other videos you've seen me do, where it's actually not really worth it to go over Jolteon at all. Maybe you guys can disagree with me if you want, but I think most of the matches with BALCEPHALON could go either way. But just a friendly reminder, these are mostly just, matchups for just 1v1s. Where, both Pokemon are full HP. And obviously, you're not going to do that with BALCEPHALON. You're not going to take BALCEPHALON out against a healthy Tauros or a healthy Snorlax, Alakazam, etc. They're mostly going to either have some damage, or they're going to have some status, most likely paralysis. So this tier list isn't exactly what it seems, but just keep that in mind. And I'll just be honest with you guys, I'm probably going to do Hydreigon tomorrow, because you guys have been requesting it for a while. And even though I'm personally not too interested, maybe I'll have more fun with it or be surprised when I actually go over it. Just look forward to that tomorrow. And also just for a reminder to go vote for Pokemon you'd like to see in the Generation Jumble. I will be starting that probably next week. Maybe Monday. Tomorrow I might also just release a video going over the Generation Jumble. but that might happen later today. I'll have to see. Actually, maybe not today, because I might have another video, but actually might be Godzilla related. I don't know. I'll just figure it out when I get to it. Thank you all for watching. This is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.